Why are you laughing? Did it go down the wrong way?
Yes.
That's amazing that you managed to spit it into your cup and not that way.
Welcome to season 10 of a Vietnam podcast. We are back. I am so excited. And today I am with a guest who first appeared in season 2 back in 2019.
Isn't that so crazy to believe?
So I'll just go and have a 3-month break. And at the end of 3 months, I was like, I don't want to leave yet. I'll just stay another 3 months. So it was originally 6 months, and 6 years later, it's 2019. I'm still here. So it's good. I like it.
Thank you so much for wherever you are in the world for tuning in. My guest today became my friend after we met. You'd just been on the Vietnamese Voice. We'd maybe come across each other once before, and I invited you on the podcast. And I'm really excited to say I'm going to be at your wedding this weekend, or your wedding ceremony, and I'm going to be an MC at it. So my guest today is Ella Beth.
Woo! It's so awesome to be back here. Thank you so much for getting me back on the show. Yeah, it's surreal. It's surreal to be back, first of all, in Vietnam, to be back talking to you, but to be on season 10, that feels like, I'm like, oh, congratulations for you. 10 seasons is great. I get to be on the 10th season. Okay, cool.
I can't believe you were on season 2. I thought it would have been 5 or 6 or something like that. So 2019, I honestly can't even remember where we recorded it. Where would it have been at my home in Phu Nhan?
Yeah. So that was the first time that I met anyone who was living along Trung Sa, and now I'm actually staying there while I'm here in Vietnam. So it's like a nice little circular sort of moment in time.
It's crazy. And to think back then, I had a Blue Yeti microphone, one microphone between us in my front room. Now we have all new microphones. We're in a new studio, lights, camera,
new
action, headphones as well. It's pretty exciting, and I can't believe how much it's changed since you've been gone. But the whole reason for season 10 is I'm bringing on guests that have been on the podcast before and finding out, where are you now? You haven't been on the podcast for 5 years, so that's quite a big gap. So you'd just done the Vietnamese Voice back then. And I know we talked about that you could speak Vietnamese. How's your Vietnamese now?
It's surprised me how much it's come back to me just being here on ground. You know, obviously things like if you don't practice it, if you don't use it, it does tend to sort of like go to the back of your brain. Like little important things, talking with street hawkers or my grab bike driver or restaurant people or even my Vietnamese friends, like little things are coming back and I'm surprised by myself. I'm like, oh, okay, I remember this. It's kind of like riding a bike, I guess, they say. I would say that my Vietnamese is still conversational. I never reached fluency. Conversational, if you want to have a joking conversation, there's going to be a lot of laughs, a lot of probably like mispronounced things. But surprisingly, I would say that, yeah, no, I'm really surprised at how much I remember.
Do you get strange looks when you use your Vietnamese from locals?
Yeah, sometimes they still look at me and they say no English. And I smile. I'm not speaking English to you. Vietnamese, tiếng Việt.
I mean, I can only say about 3 things and I still get that. I'll ask like bao nhiêu, which is how much. And then they get the calculator out and show me it. And I'm like, no, you could say the number. But to be honest, today I got lunch, I asked bao nhiêu, she said the number and I had no idea what she said. So the calculator is probably is for me. I'm so terrible.
What really surprised me about Vietnamese coming back quickly was yesterday I went to go get a massage up in Phu Nhan. It's beautiful. I came out feeling like I was walking on a cloud. And as I was crossing the road, I looked both ways. You know, I did the Vietnamese thing and I was like, right, this seems like a very a fair enough point to cross. And as I'm crossing, I was looking, so I'd made it past this side and I was crossing looking this way because there was a car coming and the back of my heel got clipped by a young guy on a motorbike and he wasn't going super fast. So like I didn't fall over and he stopped and he said, sorry. But it definitely speaks to how I've grown as a person because in that instant, all of the Vietnamese swear words that I knew came back to me. And old me, before I like chilled out a little bit, would have turned around and unleashed a torrent of them. But I didn't. I was like, it's okay, man, just be careful. But I was really surprised at all the naughty words that I remembered suddenly. It's like PTSD or something. But it was fun.
So we first did the podcast 5 years ago nearly now. What has changed in your life since then? We've mentioned that you're just back in Vietnam to get married, but I feel like that's the end point. So what's happened between October 2019 and right now? We are in April 2024, 5 years
wild.
after. That's wild, right? So
wild.
Tell us, where have you been and what have you done in those 5 years?
So when we first did the podcast, I was very new in Saigon. I didn't really know my way around the city. I didn't really know heaps of people, and I'd moved down to Saigon to really pursue my singing career after The Voice. I really wanted to be making more money and getting more opportunities, and Saigon, being the biggest city, just had that to offer, a little more than Hanoi at the time. I think the last time that we met, that we chatted, I had only just met Tony, so that was pretty new. So,
and we'll talk about who's Tony in a minute. We'll get there.
So the last 5 years, obviously early 2020, the pandemic hit the world, and so that stunted some of my opportunities. But also in Vietnam, we were really lucky in 2020 because things were still sort of just happening. Life was going on, even though the rest of the world was burning. So I was still able to do some really cool things musically. I sang for like the Vietel group, and I sang for the Vin group, and I got to do some little tours. And I was definitely sort of building momentum as a vocalist here in the city. And then 2021 came along, and that was when Vietnam got hit harder. And so my performing and singing just really was put on the back burner. I was able to still teach online with the school that I was teaching here in Vietnam, but I didn't get to really perform for about 8 months, and that was hard. That was really tough. Just as a creative person, if you're not stretching your creative muscles, they get a bit stagnant. And also, I just get so much joy from being on stage. So I would say that I probably wasn't the happiest person at that point.
So I remember that actually the whole reason that I invited you on a Vietnam podcast was because I was at work. And my Vietnamese colleague said, Neil, you got to come and see this girl singing on the Vietnamese Voice. She's from Australia.
And you were like, what?
Yeah. And I went over to her desk and watched you perform on YouTube on the Vietnamese Voice. And I was like, wait, what? Oh, this should be a great guest. And then that's how we got in touch. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm coming to your wedding this weekend. So we've stayed in touch and we've become good friends over the years, you and my wife, Adri, and then obviously Biscuit. And Ella does what everybody does. The first thing she asks about is, how's Biscuit? Nobody gives a shit about me or Adri. They only care about Biscuit.
We talked about you and Adriel. We talked about you going to Perth first. I waited a good 10 minutes before.
Only because you know better. Only because you know better. Everyone's the same. Wherever I go, it's always been like that. It's fine. She's way, way cuter. Everyone's the same. Even today, she turned up. The first thing she said was, is Biscuit coming to the wedding?
Yeah. You got to ask the important questions,
So we met after, obviously, to do the podcast was when we first really got to know each other, and then we continued to see each other around Saigon. And then you started doing comedy just like me as well. And it was really amazing to see you do comedy and do musical comedy with me as well. We performed together at the Hard Rock Cafe.
Did that show. Honestly, that's still one of my favorite performances in Saigon, because never in my life did I think I'd perform at a Hard Rock Cafe. I'm like, I can tick that off the list.
I'm the same as well, yeah.
So I auditioned for the show. And they said no, but I love straight out. Okay, you guys help me out. It goes like this. They said no. Can you guys sing it with me? They said no, but I love it straight out again. They said no, but I love it straight out. They said no, but I love it straight out. They said no.
It wasn't even that good. My best friend, he's a bellend. He wanted to go next. We knew it was wrong, 'cause and we got blisters on our schlongs. We knew it was wrong. 4 million it cost all the dong.
And it closed down because of the pandemic, and I'm really sad about that. Which before I would just be like, oh, Hard Rock Cafe, but then once we started performing there, and like, oh wow, this is a really cool place, and
and for them to
venue.
be supportive of it and stuff, that was
yeah. So what was it like doing comedy? Was that something you'd ever thought about doing?
No, I'd never seen myself as a comedian. I mean, I think as a performer, you have to have like a level of being able to improvise on the spot. So I was kind of used to being on stage and having a mic in my hand, but I always just valued my vocal prowess over like my personality, which whatever anyone has to say about that, I think my personality also is a winning thing. So it was really interesting thinking like, oh, maybe I can expand my creativity. It's still performing. It still have a microphone. Like you still want to entertain people. It's just using words in a different way. So I really enjoyed my foray into comedy. I still to this day, there's a notes on my phone that I go on there and I write like little jokes in and stuff. So perhaps in a year's time when I think I've got a good 5 minutes together, I might get up and do that again. But I've been able to focus again on the music. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And I've essentially retired from comedy now to focus on podcasts, but I have got a good joke for your wedding, and don't worry, I won't tell you about it until we get there. Okay. But so you started doing comedy, and then like a lot of the guests on this show, we had COVID happen between your first time on the show and now. And even when I was recording this podcast during the COVID years, as I guess we can call them, we never really talked about COVID because I didn't want the show to be about that. Every time you turned the TV on, it's all everyone knew, everyone talked about. So I was like, let's just make it not about COVID. But we're not going to go into detail about COVID, but how was that for you and how did that change your life?
COVID wasn't hard in 2020. 2021 was incredibly tough. For me, I wasn't able to perform. There just weren't venues open. People didn't need singers because nothing was open. And not being able to be on stage and to sing and perform was really tough because it's just what I love to do. It's what I want to do. I'm very blessed to be able to work in my passion and also to be talented at what I'm passionate about. Like I feel really blessed to be able to do that. So not being able to perform all of 2021 was really hard on me. You know, apart from the fact that the world was just in chaos, everyone was stressed, everyone was anxious, everyone was probably feeling levels of depression and anxiety. So yeah, COVID really affected me in the way that by the time the pandemic was over, I kind of felt a bit rusty as a performer. And that in my whole adult life, I'd never experienced that because I'd been regularly performing. So that was tough. It was really tough to not be on stage, to not be able to share my gift with people and not be able to entertain people. That was tough for the all of 2021 for sure.
It was tough for everyone, right? I mean, I went from doing comedy 2 or 3 times a week to not doing it. So you do get used to having a microphone to being on stage. We did some online shows together.
We did do some online shows,
Not the same, I remember, but it's still amazing to be able to. I remember doing a show online to like 40 people, 50 people on a Zoom call, or watching me do like an hour stand-up
Isn't that
set.
amazing?
It's like incredible, yeah.
And to be able to gather people around the world, I guess in some ways I kind of think of that time as a blessing because it did really highlight the fact that technology is such an amazing thing these days. We can be so unbelievably connected through the internet. So,
well, I've read this before. This is not an original thought, but I lived it. I loved that during that time we could meet somebody that we hadn't seen in years. Like I watched with some friends, watched some old World Cup football games. It was like Nigeria against Italy in the 94 World Cup. And I organised it. It was like 3 or 4 of us. We met up, we had beers. And then the pandemic's over. You never see those people again. You never like call them and be like, hey, you want to meet up on Sunday online and we'll have some beers and watch some football? It's just like done. Like I will never speak to you again. Despite the beauty of the pandemic, meaning we will become closer and share this moment together. It's so weird, right?
What a weird time. And even like being foreigners here in Vietnam, I feel blessed that the government really wanted to like protect the country, and I think we did have a much more easy time of 2020 than the rest of the world had. You know, like there was silver linings in what was just such a weird time. But I also felt like we did experience it in a bubble. Like when I talk to my friends from Australia, or I talk to my friends in America now who experienced the pandemic there, they're like, really? Really? Life just went on? I was like, I mean, okay, I live in the South now. Well, for a lot of places in the South, life just went on there too, because in the South, they're like, my rights, my freedom. But it's like we did experience such an interesting time in history in such a strange little sort of bubble of it.
We've alluded to the fact that you're no longer in Vietnam. So tell us a little bit about that journey from living here in Vietnam, meeting somebody, which we can talk about, and your journey now to, as you've alluded to, now living in America.
So Tony and I met here in Saigon at TNR Bar, which I think's just so funny. We went back and got a photo outside there last night, just be like, yeah, the good old days. So we met there, and like many international couples in Vietnam, we were really happy, and it was very easy for us to have a relationship here because it was in our third country, in the middle ground. So when the pandemic happened and things started to get harder for people to be able to get visas unless they were sponsored by companies and stuff, Tony realized he really needed to go home. It had been years since he was home, and he needed to be back in America. So we thought we would have to break up, and that was another thing that was just so tough about 2021, like so emotionally taxing, and having to go through that, together. It's really hard when you love somebody, but you think you're doing what's right for them or what's right for you. So 2020 is sort of from May to June 2021 was hard because he was sort of packing up his life in Vietnam. And as he's packing up to leave, things are getting more harder and harder to be outside doing things. It was all really just kind of on the fly.
I remember you were messaging me during that time asking for advice because obviously Adrian and I are from two different countries. I remember you saying, how did you guys make this work? And yeah, it was heartbreaking to see as well because obviously you guys were so close, and then to see you being ripped apart, like many couples were ripped apart because of the pandemic.
It felt like that. It felt because it didn't feel like it was in our power, it really felt like we were being ripped apart. And that just took such a toll amongst everything else on like my confidence, I think, and my mental health for a bit. So we did the last half of 2021, the last 6 months of 2021 as long distance. And I had never, ever wanted to do long distance with anyone. I was like, no, that seems too hard. That's like, it's unnecessary, until you're in a global
the pandemic. Yeah, then everything is long distance.
Right.
Yeah.
So
people had long distance relationships within Saigon. Like I knew somebody whose partner lived like 2 streets over.
Yeah.
And didn't see her for 3 months.
Yeah, because they just couldn't leave their houses on the street. This is so insane. So he went back and we did 6 months of long distance, which even though we both thought never really wanted to do, we made it work and we made it happen. And we did things like watch old movies together over Zoom and try to figure out what the best time for him was, mainly because they're 12 hours behind.
It's such a horrible time as well. 12 hours is like 7 a.m. is 7 p.m. They're such vastly different, like,
absolutely.
You're doing such different things at 7 a.m.
Yeah, I don't want to be in his way when he's going to work, and like he didn't want to be trying to keep me up on the weekends and stuff.
Such a difficult time.
It was definitely a challenge, but I also feel like it gave us more of the emotional stability that we needed to be like, well, if we can make this work, we can probably make anything work. Which was amazing. So yeah, we did that last 6 months apart, and he went to Atlanta, and we'd call a couple of times a day, and I would get up and teach my classes online on Zoom, and then I'd call him afterwards. And then in December 21, I also got on a plane and I went to Atlanta, which, I tell everyone this, like, we talked about this, like I never thought I would even visit America. I was just like, it's too far away. Like, there's too much bureaucracy. I certainly didn't think I'd marry an American. For the bureaucracy thing alone, I was like, I hate paperwork. Like, I don't want to have to worry about falling in love with someone who I have to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork for. But God has a sense of humor. I truly believe that. And I just played right into the joke. I was like, well, this is what we're doing now.
Do you remember what I wanted you to do?
90 Day Fiancé.
Yes, 90 Day Fiancé.
You weren't the only one who said that. Quite a few people were like, you know what, Ella, you'd probably do great on 90 Day Fiancé. And had we had a little bit more time to plan, that definitely could have been a thing.
I definitely could have seen you on 90 Day Fiancé.
That
100%.
is so funny.
It's one of the worst shows in the world, but it's also one of my favorites. It's amazing. I've stopped watching it lately, but during the kind of pandemic times, a couple of years after that was like my go-to show.
So I'll tell you, like, it's sort of parallel to 90 Day Fiancé. Have you ever seen the show Love is Blind?
Of course I have. Yes, of course I have. By that, I mean, Adri started watching it and then I started leaning over and going, wait, what did he say? Wait, what did she say? Oh, what are they doing now? Okay, hold on. I'm going to come
and now you're the one like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
This next season's coming out next week.
Yep. And I recently started making a podcast for a woman who was a producer on season 1. And I so fanboyed so much. I was like, oh my God, Love is Blind season 1. And she's like, yeah, everyone gets so excited about it. She's like, it's really not that big a deal. But she's like, it was one of the toughest jobs I've ever had to do. She had to help when they like filmed all day. You can imagine just hours and hours of footage.
Yeah.
She had to go through it all and then find out all the interesting bits that they would then make.
Right. And then
show.
try and edit a storyline into it. So it kind of
Exactly.
Yeah, I can imagine that must be hard. So on that note, actually, season 1 was filmed in Atlanta. When Tony and I when we got to the point where we're like, oh, how am I going to stay in America? And we got to the whole sort of like talking about marriage thing. I did my research for officiants who could sign our marriage certificate in Atlanta. And I managed to track down the officiant who signed all of the season 1 Love is Blind certificates. So we have like a little bit of like connection to Love is Blind too. How funny.
You purposefully tracked down the officiant
Absolutely.
from Love is Blind.
Yeah, I was like, I know he's from Atlanta. So I went and looked for him. We went to his office and it was also COVID there, so we couldn't spend long in there. But we just said, hey, man, like we're big fans of the show. It's really cool that you did that. We were watching it when we just started dating. So yeah, and he signed our certificate. And
how much business do you think he got from being on that show?
He must have been rolling in it. He charges $100 to sign a certificate. So I was like, this guy.
Amazing.
Just up the road from us. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, so I mean, I knew you and Tony were going through trying to be together. Then you moved to the States kind of quite suddenly, right? Like it was, you were the last we kind of spoken and because nobody could leave, you were here. Yeah. And suddenly you were gone.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And what was that like then living in the States after saying that you were never going to live there?
Man, it's been a trip. It's been such a trip. I don't know. I tried not to go with any expectations. I just wanted to experience America as I saw it and as I felt it. So the first big shock that hit me was flying into Atlanta. I don't know why. Before I went to America, I just assumed that every major city looked like New York. I just thought that New York was the most famous looking one of all the major cities. I was just expecting everything to be just miles and miles of high rises. So flying into Atlanta, which is known as one of the greenest cities in America, I was thinking to myself, looking out the window, why are there so many trees? Like, why are there so many trees in this city?
Why are there so many trees?
I was like, am I in the right place? So that was my first experience. And then I got off the plane. And to this day, it's one of the most like American things that I've ever experienced. I lined up at TSA and I had all my paperwork on my flight over there. I had like written out a little itinerary.
I've just remembered, did we not rehearse this before you left?
You gave me so many tips. You were like,
you were asking like, what are they going to ask me? Because I remember one of the tips I told you was they might ask you what color is Tony's toothbrush.
Something like that.
They ask you such random things.
Right.
That you're like,
about like my money situation and stuff, which I wasn't going over with. I didn't really have a plan,
Yeah, I've just remembered that now, yeah.
So I get up to the TSA agent, it's this big guy. First of all, also Atlanta is quite a big, it's a very international city, like a huge melting pot. So I get to the TSA desk and it's this really big guy. I don't know, he looked like maybe he could have been like Middle Eastern or I don't know, really big dude. And I'm packing it because I have like a somewhat dubious flying out ticket and a somewhat made up plan for being in America. And this guy, I get up to this thing and he looks at me, he goes, "Take your mask off." And I was like, and then the next thing he says, "Don't look so scared. It's not that serious." And I'm thinking to myself, everyone that I've ever talked to told me it's really serious. And he's going through my itinerary, asking me things and asked me where I was staying at this point. It's like, "Okay, when's your flight out?" And my ticket said the 20th of January. And I was just like panicking so much. I was like, "My ticket there is the 20th of July. He goes, "July?" I said, Sorry, sir. I'm just really nervous. It's my first time in America. Sorry, the 20th of January. He's like, "All right." And then he stamped it and let me through. And but I was packing it, like totally terrified. So that was my first sort of hour and a half in America. I was like, okay, all right, well, they've let me in. I'm here.
I'm staying.
Yeah, right. I'm here now. So it was interesting. My first 3 months there, it really felt like a holiday. When you go to a new place, everything's just new and fresh. And I'd just come out of being locked in my apartment here in Saigon for 6 months. So it was really nice to we could go out and go hiking if we wanted to. We could go down to like a little music venue if we wanted to. So I was just loving America for being able to get out and experience it. And we did end up going to New York a couple of weeks after I arrived to see Tony's extended family. So I got a really cool experience of America my first couple of months, and then it was as it happens for anyone who doesn't really have a plan. If you go to America, you have to get a plan or get out. And so Tony and I were like, well, I guess this is the plan. So we put a ring on it.
I love it. How did he propose?
Let's
make a plan. Yeah.
We just decided. He didn't propose. We went to the local courthouse on April Fool's Day, and we just got married. And that was it. Took the certificate over to the guy, got him to sign it, went and filed all our stuff, and went and had some lunch with my in-laws. But yeah, it wasn't like sudden. It was definitely more sudden than we thought. I honestly thought that I'd go to America, and I was like, I don't have a plan, but I'd been living in Asia for so long. I was like, if anything, surely I can just go and do visa runs, can I not? Like, I can just leave every 90 days and come back to America. So I thought I was going to go and have a little holiday in Mexico, drink some beers in Cancun. And the lawyer was like, don't leave. Don't try to come back. Like, don't do that. Really, I recommend you guys seriously look at getting married. If you think you're going to, it might sort of push your plans up further, like sooner than you thought. But if you already think that you're going to do it, just do it. So we just did it. So I went from being a girlfriend to a wife in one day. I never saw that coming, but I was like, cool.
And obviously I follow you online, not follow you online, I'm friends with you online. So I saw what you went through. Just briefly describe, because you've now got the hallowed green card, right? And without going into too much detail, but what was that process like? That it's super stressful, right?
Absolutely. I'll be the first to admit that I realize that I'm very privileged, that I come from that I have a passport and come from a country that has good relationship with America. That definitely made things easier for us than, for example, some of my in-laws on Tony's side of the family who've come from Central America. Like, some of their stories are horror stories compared to how easy our process seemed to be. So we got married. You have to be married to be able to file for the marriage certificate by green card or green card by marriage. And we put in all the paperwork at the end of August 2022. So we were told that it would be about 9 to 11 months. And so we really thought that we'd given ourselves enough time. We were like, it's cool. No, with how the USCIS is saying that things are moving through the system now, we're going to have enough time. It's going to be okay. And we had a lawyer help us out. People do it by themselves, but I was a little bit nervous with all of the paperwork to be doing it on our own. So we had her help us out. And she was really helpful, making sure that she's just in contact, making sure that we were sending the right paperwork at the right time. If they needed like extra parts of, forms and stuff, she was really good with that. So we were waiting. I was okay waiting. When you're in the system, you're just waiting. They don't give you updates. You're just waiting for the next thing to come in the mail. And it got to, so we were waiting till the end of 2022. And I was like, okay, it's cool. We're good. We got time, because we'd planned to come back to Vietnam in 2023, in April 2023. So a year ago. And we were like, no, we're good time. We're 5 months out. We've still got time. It's fine. And I really wasn't worried. Like, I'd been praying about it. I was like, it's totally going to be okay. And
I had my hotel room booked and everything.
Yeah, I know.
So you were coming back to have your wedding ceremony.
We're coming back to have our wedding ceremony, and we really thought we'd given ourselves enough time, and it got closer and closer to it. And I'm starting to panic, and I've told the lawyer, can you put in a what's the word to make it quicker? Like
expedite?
Can you put in an expedite request for us? And she said, okay. And that got denied on the basis that it wasn't like an important enough thing for them to
when you go on holiday, can you hurry up? Right. I mean, essentially, right, that's what it is.
I even said, look, because I was supposed to sing at a wedding in March in Ireland. So I was like, look, it's a work, I need to get my green card for a work thing first. And then I'm planning on leaving in April as well. But that got rejected. And so I don't know, one day I decided to just use all of my American rights, my freedom. And I wrote a letter to our local senator. I wrote a letter to the congresswoman for our area. I wrote a letter. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go straight to the top of the chain. So I wrote a letter to Kamala's office. I wrote a letter to President Joe Biden's office. And I said, I realize that I have an intensely privileged position to be writing this to you in English. And
it sounds like the definition of white privilege right
absolutely.
now.
Absolutely. And I said to them, look, I realize that I'm probably not going to get this piece of paper for what I want it for, but just so you know, I'm aware that I'm privileged, and I'm also aware of how many people are backed up in the system who can't speak English, who might not have had the money to do this, who might be waiting and have family members who are ill and passing away on the other side of the world. And I said, not just for me, I'll be sad for my situation, but I feel like I need to say something on behalf of all the other people who are waiting in the system, because your system really sucks. And I understand that it got slower after the pandemic, and there's a lot of Ukrainian refugees coming in. So it really had backed up the system. And I understand that, but the USCIS system really sucked at that point. So I was like, well, if no one's going to say it, I'm going to say it. So I wrote to them, and I got messages back. Oh, thanks for writing to the office. So no, I don't know if they ever read them, but I was like, well, I feel like I was able to use my American privileges to say something. So the ironic thing was, though, we postponed the wedding. It was supposed to be on the 27th of April, and all of my stuff, my green card, my work permit, my driver's license came through on the 12th of May. And I was like, so were they really listening? And they were just like, let's just I can't think like that. But I was like, are you serious? So that was my experience of the system. It wasn't too difficult in regards to getting things done, because we went with a lawyer. But I really feel for people who have to wait in the system for years, who've been waiting for years with just no response. They just don't know where their case is on someone's desk. And that to me, that's no bueno. I think America, they need to either hire more people or get someone to code them a more efficient system. Something's got to give, because people can't be waiting for years and years with no word as to what's happening with their system. So,
well, one of the podcasts that I make now is for an architecture firm. If you want to go check it out, it's called Red Lines. It's one of my favorite podcasts to make, but it's actually heartbreaking. So they cover how architecture, mostly students are treated that come from other countries to study architecture in the US and get completely screwed over by the immigration system, and really, really interesting. Really? And it's quite heartbreaking. So
even coming to the US and on study visas and everything. Really,
it's the whole process, but we won't go into it. But go check out Red Lines. It's one of my many podcasts. This is why a Vietnam podcast has been on a break. Well, to round off, tell people now, what's your life like in America? Because I obviously see it. I know what you've been doing. Give us a bit of a roundup of life in America with a green card, with a husband, before you've come back to Vietnam.
So I truly can say, without a shadow of a doubt, as an Australian who was never interested in going to America, I love America now. I live in the suburbs, and that's that's really nice. It's peaceful. It's quiet. We have a beautiful little neighborhood, and Tony and I hang out with friends that he went to school with. And I'd never experienced what it was like to live in the suburbs with people that you went to school with, because I left Australia so long. So I feel like I'm getting these experiences that I just didn't get in my 20s as someone who lived abroad. And after I got my work permit last year, so that came in May, probably 2 weeks after, I was contacted by the leader of a corporate band, and I'm now one of the main singers in this corporate band, and we travel all over the Southeast, between the Carolinas, Tennessee, I go to Alabama sometimes, Mississippi, Florida, and I sing at really cool, big, fancy Southern weddings, and it is so fun. Like I didn't think that I'd go to America, but I certainly didn't think that I'd ever be able to work as a professional working musician. Like that has been probably the most surreal experience in America, just to be able to do what I love. And being married is so lovely. Like, honestly, it's nice, isn't it? You are. And you married an international person. Like, as much as there can be little cultural differences or something, little differences in how we were raised, I am so blessed to have the husband that I do, and to have the life that we do in America. So I don't know. I'm just like stoked to be doing what I'm doing, and I sing. I'm involved with the church over there. I sing at church. So yeah, being able to work in music and just perform as a musician, and also to have the schedule that I do, is so awesome. Like I basically have a 36-hour window that I perform on the weekends, and then the rest of the week I can be recording in the studio. I can be working on music,
and podcasting, I saw as well. Yeah,
so that's kind of taken a hiatus for now, but it was awesome to be able to be in your position, to be the interviewer, and meeting cool musicians, young musicians, really diverse people from Atlanta, because Atlanta's an amazing city. Like
I've heard,
it has, there's this real go kind of vibe about it. There's real hustle culture, and people are making their entrepreneurial dreams work, and people are working on being full-time musicians. It's just such a cool vibe, and everyone's really working to build towards something. And I really like being a part of that. And I wondered when I got to America if I was kind of going to be on the back foot, because I'm an outsider, and the music world is really about who you know. But because America, the whole world had just come out of the pandemic, like these musicians, even ones who are really seasoned in Atlanta, were just getting back onto the scene. So I kind of felt like I started at the same place that these guys did. Everyone was just working on reestablishing connections with venues, was working on rejamming with people that might have met. So it's been awesome to be able to experience it kind of as just another musician in the city, which I feel really blessed to do. So yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. It's so amazing to hear. And you mentioned May 12th. That is a special day as well. That's the day I proposed to Adri, May 12th.
No way!
And you talked about going to T&R Bar with Tony. So I just came back from Perth, Western Australia, which is where I proposed to Adri. And we went to Kings Park, which is where I proposed.
Where you proposed?
Because it's one of my favourite spots in the city. It overlooks this one river, and it's absolutely beautiful. And we've been married now over 10 years, and it is a beautiful thing. So I'm sure you're going to catch up soon.
Yeah.
We're going to be at your wedding this weekend. We can't wait. Your wedding ceremony.
Right. I'm already, that's what I have to keep. People are like, are you already married? I'm like, yes, I'm already married, but we're having like the ceremony and the party. Like
the fun part, not the courthouse part. Right? We got married in a courthouse as well, and it was fun. It was beautiful. We had friends there, but the party's the best part.
Exactly. Yeah, so, eat, drink, and be merry, and dance with the Hanoi Jazz Band. That's what I'm really excited.
Perfect. I can't believe that we got to know each other by you coming on this podcast in October 2019, and I'm going to be at your wedding this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're back in Vietnam, even for a short time.
Thank you.
Make sure you check out Ella Beth on social media, Instagram, I assume, all those good things as well.
ellabeth.music on Instagram, Ella Beth Music on Facebook, Ella Beth Music on YouTube.
I think it's Ella Beth Music. You might have to know
just you can find it anywhere.
Google it.
And I did release a couple of projects end of last year and early this year out of some studios in Atlanta. So if you want to go and listen to the kind of music that I do, you can find me also on Spotify, Ella Beth. So
that's right. Thank you so much, Ella Beth, for coming on. This has been amazing. Thank you for joining me in the studio. And most of all, thank you for listening to this episode of a Vietnam podcast. Remember, the best thing that you can do is tell somebody about this podcast who might also like it. Ask them to share it. You share it as well, please. And please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening from right now. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yee.
Hột gà nước, hột vịt lộn, hột vịt sữa, trứng cút lộn, mất sao đây? Mất sao đây?
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're like me, you may use your laptop at places where you have to use public Wi-Fi. This opens you up to digital snoopers. It's a massive problem. It can be your internet service provider, or you know who, looking at what you do online, or a cyber criminal trying to steal your bank passwords or credit card info, or even a hacker at the next table trying to steal your sensitive data. These days, it is vital that you keep your data safe. NordVPN keeps all of these snoopers away. It makes your internet activity private, protects you from accessing dangerous websites that are phishing for your data, and lets you enjoy your favorite content securely, even while away from home. And it's easy to use, even I could use it. I've actually been using NordVPN for years now here in Vietnam, and I'm excited to be an affiliate partner with them. I've used NordVPN to watch Netflix, BBC, Disney Plus with ease. And I also know that my information and data are safe from prying eyes, whoever they may be. Join now and you'll get 68% off and 3 months free when you go to my link, nordvpn.com/SMB. Just again, for those hard of hearing, nordvpn.com/SMB. The link is also in the show notes. I know nobody checks them out, but go check that out and you can get the link from wherever you're listening to this podcast. As an affiliate partner, it also means that I will get a small commission when you sign up, but at no extra cost to you. So not only will you be getting a great deal through 7 Million Bikes, you get a great VPN and you'll be supporting 7 Million Bikes podcast. Stay safe online and enjoy the shows you love. Any questions, just let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. And thanks for listening to this show. Cheers.